Everyone. I'd like to call the Winterville Town Council Budget Workshop Session 1 to order. Today is Thursday, May the 21st, 2026, and the time now is 6:01. Invocation will be given by Mayor Pro Tem Robinson, and we'll stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we give thanks. We give thanks for our community. We give thanks for the people that work for our community and help provide different services for us. We ask you to guide us in the right ways to do, right decisions to make our community a great place to live.
Amen.
Amen.
If you could please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, I'd like to welcome everyone that's here and also that's watching. My name is Ricky Hines, the mayor here at Winterville. And before I get started, I'd like to just recognize our staff, town staff. Today we had employees appreciation, and I want them to know they're the ones that keep the lights on, keep the water flowing, and everything else in this town. But we are the one that sits up here and make these decisions, but it's truly all our employees that makes this town go. And on the behalf of the council, I would like to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. With that being said, we're gonna roll over to the roll call, and I'm gonna turn it over to the manager, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I will start with Councilwoman Hawkins.
Present.
Councilman Moy.
Present.
Councilwoman Smith.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Robertson.
Present.
Mayor Hines.
Present.
And currently, Councilwoman Harrell is not present. She may be with us later
Yes.
in the meeting.
Right. Thank you. All right. Next up is the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Have a motion on the floor made by Councilwoman Smith, second by Councilman Moy to approve the agenda.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
I submitted a list of things that we've been talking about, and I don't see them on the agenda. Is there a reason?
So I took your email to mean, which it wasn't expressly stated, that it would be the next regular meeting.
Okay.
I apologize if that was not the intent.
I was trying to get it started.
I gotcha. I got you. Now,
Okay.
if council is willing, I mean, I can certainly put it on Tuesday night's workshop or Thursday night's workshop, but I apologize. I took it as the next regular meeting.
I would like to see us discuss those things that, and even add to or delete if we could.
I have a comment. So I did get your email with regards to like, what you would like to see in terms of us planning. I took that as a planning meeting because that included policy. These meetings are budget meetings. And so that is why I thought it wasn't on there, because that's separate in and of itself. And I thought we were planning that for July. And then second, I did speak with Town Manager Parker. I'm used to getting a physical copy of the budget, and I would like to request that, if not tonight, then by Tuesday, so that
Sure,
I can actually
absolutely.
look and point through things.
So as a reminder, if I may, on the tail end of this, Councilwoman Hawkins did request a hard copy, and anyone else that requests a hard copy, please let me know, or Kim or Don. We sent digital copies this year, and so that applies to staff too. So if council or staff would like a hard copy, please let us know. We'll make you one.
Thank
I
you.
like a hard copy.
Okay? Anybody on, other than the mayor and Well, you got one. Councilwoman Harrell did not want one. Mr. Moy's good? Okay, great. So Mayor Pro Tem, Councilwoman Hawkins, we'll get that to you.
Please, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or where we at?
Let me say this.
Okay.
It could be done during the planning meeting, but we would have to schedule that planning meeting. And that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at us, it may not be, I don't expect us to be able to approach all those things there, but I would like to see us, I hate to say plan a planning meeting, but schedule a planning meeting to get those things done.
Well, and if I may, along those lines, it's going to take more than one, and some of these will need their own.
Yes.
So just a reminder, as we set dates, you know, that some of those will take probably an entire meeting, if not more than one, on one subject, and then certainly most of them will need their own,
But
as
we,
we're thinking about meetings.
it's very important that we begin the process with these things rather than, making adding items to this. So, I'm fine if we could add it to our meeting next week. Do we have a motion on it?
Preference Tuesday or Thursday? Probably,
Let's say Tuesday because.
I was going to say
we may not
yes, we may not
meet
need Thursday.
Yeah.
Well,
So for clarity, we're adding that as an item. Are we going to be discussing that fully? Because this, again, is a budget meeting. So if we're discussing those items, which are very important, they're going to take time. If these meetings are from, and I know time is one of the things that we are speaking of. So if we're talking about the things that were listed, we're going to need ample time. So with budget, ample time, how do we prioritize? And/or are we just going to utilize that on the agenda to identify dates? That's.
I'm at the council's pleasure. Either way, it would be difficult, though, to try to do this during.
I totally agree. I agree with Councilwoman Hawkins. This right here, I think the main focus for these series of meetings here is basically their budget. Councilwoman Robinson, I understand, I saw the email, and I was thinking that it would be something that we put on the agenda for next month to talk about, to discuss, and then formulate a plan to how to carry it out from the meeting in June. But, this budget is gonna be a heavy lift, and I think we need to focus on the budget at hand right now. But, again, it's the pleasure of the board, but I think this is where we need to be focused right now.
So I see and understand all sides. Can we at least come to an agreement that if we do add these items to June, that we make a commitment to scheduled dates?
Yes, ma'am, I can see that, yes. We actually need to schedule some dates, so.
I think, I want us to begin the process.
Right.
I can agree to June, that's fine with me, I can agree to that, that's what the board wants, to do that, but, I don't want to see any more items added to the, quote, I say retreat, or the things that are planning meeting before we get these items cleared up.
Okay, so we'll take the list that you sent, and we'll make dates. Again, we've already had what's tantamount to, that's not to say you can't have a retreat anytime, but again, these will be special workshops for the specific items themselves, as council agrees on the dates.
All right.
That's fine.
All right, so we have the motion on the floor. I now call for the vote. All in favor of approving the agenda, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All approved, motion carried. All right. Next up, we had a break in here, but we're gonna move forward to item for discussions, and I'm gonna turn it over to our town manager.
Mayor, we normally break for dinner prior to.
We have dinner?
We do have dinner.
Oh, I did not know that.
Break for dinner.
I asked Don, did we have dinner?
He must have been messing with you.
Okay, all right.
I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page.
We're gonna take a 30-minute recess, for dinner. Okay, all right. Like to reconvene the meeting, the budget meeting, and I'm gonna turn it over, before I turn it over, council and also, nobody but us up here, make sure y'all either lean over or pull your mic down to you so that when you have a question, so that they can hear you and all that, please. All right, so I'm gonna turn it back over now to our town manager.
Okay, Mayor, I know Ms. Manning is not here. Mayor, can I borrow your book a minute?
Okay.
Ms. Manning's not here, but she's on her way, so she should be here shortly in case we have any specific questions for her. You make. Thank you. Evan's gonna make a copy of the draft budget message, so at least y'all will have that to go by. But as Evan's doing that so graciously, I just wanted to remind council that you all have received the first draft of the budget, which is the full unedited version. So this is the, as you'll recall, we usually the first night I want you all to look at the budget to see that it is totally unedited. You see a full scope of what's been requested versus the amount of revenue we have to cover all of the requests. I will give you totals across, a total across all funds of how much more in requests that we have in revenues to cover it. And then we'll break that down and go by each fund. The general fund, which encompasses several of our departments, we'll have the Parks and Recreation Fund. We have, and then our enterprise funds, which would be electric, water, sewer, and stormwater. So I'll get started, and Evan should have the copies for you momentarily. This is an unbalanced budget. Again, this is version 1. Our goal is to talk about this unedited version tonight. One of the things that we have to walk away from this meeting with is a decision by council on whether or not you all want to fund non-town agencies. And once I go through generally what's in this budget message, then if council is agreeable, we'll discuss the non-town agency funding. So obviously, staff is pleased to present version 1 of our budget for fiscal year 26-27. As a reminder, that budget year begins July 1st, 2026 and ends June 30th, 2027. Obviously, we've prepared this draft budget in accordance with North Carolina general statutes and all applicable policies and procedures. As a reminder, this version is unbalanced. There's some highlights I'd like to go over as to what's included and not included in this draft budget. Evan, thank you so much. Kim, thank you. That's the mayor's. This unbalanced draft budget includes no tax adjustments. When I mean tax adjustments, no property tax adjustments, up or down. You will see that we have a significant deficit, with half of that total deficit being in the general fund. We need a tax increase, but it's May the 21st. I do not intend to bring forward a proposed tax increase for the next year's budget, but what I will say and what you will continue to hear me say is we need a tax increase and we need utility rate increases. And I know that we've had some previous conversations about setting a plan, a council endorsed plan for incremental increases, and I totally think staff agrees with that, and we should not wait such long periods to make these increases. But thank you so much. We need increases, but currently this draft budget does not include any tax adjustments. It does include the $8.20 per month sewer increase adjustment to the flat rate. That is to cover the impending debt service for the pump station project that we are, Cliff, I would say 80% done, 90, okay, with completion, and that involved the Chapman Street, Church Street, and Robinson Heights pump stations. There are no fee adjustments currently. I do anticipate that could change, and if not to coincide with the July 1st beginning of the budget, it could come later in the budget year. I know staff has been collectively reviewing their fees, and I know there's some adjustments that need to be made to some of the fees. It does include some restructuring and some new positions, some capital outlay requests. You'll see funding for non-town agencies is denoted as a discussion item. There are contributions, as always, from the water, sewer, stormwater, and electric funds to the general fund to compensate for administrative services. Currently, there is a 5% COLA, cost of living adjustment for all employees, and an average of 2% merit for all employees. It doesn't mean all employees will get a 2%, but it's averaged in a range. You all heard this before. Health insurance cost increased to 18.94% versus this current year. This draft budget absorbed the increased cost for both the employee and partial dependent coverage that we provide. Dental insurance premiums stayed the same, and annually we contribute $25,000 to our other post-employment benefits reserve, otherwise known as OPEB. You'll hear me refer to it as OPEB. This is to cover the cost for when employees retire, and if they meet the criteria denoted in our personnel policy, then we cover their health insurance until they reach Medicare age, and then they have to transition. But this reserve covers the cost, and we evaluate it annually to see how much we would need in this reserve to cover X amount of employees if they retired from the town, and if the policy remained that we provided health insurance until Medicare age. So I'll start with going over a summary of points for the general fund. I would assert that our budgets that we present are always done in a conservative manner. We review estimates for state collected revenues published every year by the North Carolina League of Municipalities. That's part and parcel what we went over from a majority standpoint in our first budget meeting. We look at also current economic trends for Eastern North Carolina, nationwide economic trends, and historical data for the town. Flipping the page, the budget assumes a 98% tax collection rate for our property taxes and a slight increase in local option sales tax. I think you all know finance staff does an excellent job of tax collection, and we usually collect higher than 98%, but that's usually the average that we anticipate we will collect. General fund is out of balance by $5,187,232. $500,000, almost $5.2 million. Currently, there is no fund balance appropriated in this budget, but there is the annual transfer from the electric fund to the general fund in the amount of $350,000, which is what we transferred this current fiscal year, which is down quite a bit from the previous transfers. And this is a general transfer from the electric fund to the general fund to help cover cost. And you'll see that this transfer being proposed is the same as what was budgeted for in fiscal year 25-26. And y'all stop me if you have any questions along the way. Good evening. General fund departments include, for informational purposes, town council, administration, human resources, inspections and GIS, finance, information technology, planning, non-departmental, public buildings, ground and lawn maintenance, police, fire, EMS, animal control, mosquito control, public works, and sanitation. So a lot of departments make up the general fund. Some of the highlights I would like council to be aware of is that because we have not, Councilwoman Harrell wanted to make sure you had a copy of the budget, draft budget message down there. Thank you. Because we have not decided whether or not we're going to fund non-town agencies, staff put a plug number of $100,000 as a placeholder in the non-town agency expenditure line item. I believe that is somewhere in the neighborhood of what was requested last year. We have also included in-kind amounts for the Historical and Art Society, Winterville Chamber, and the Watermelon Festival. Shepherd Memorial Library, they requested $176,921, which is the same amount as this current fiscal year. So there was no increase in their request. Any questions on general fund highlights? Okay, we'll move into recreation fund. Obviously, I won't say this with every fund, but the entire budget's been put together in a conservative manner. Parks and Recreation is that fund is out of balance by $917,972. What it is helpful to know that 87 plus or minus % of the revenues for Parks and Recreation come from a transfer from the general fund. So a transfer that is the same amount as this current fiscal year and the amount of $1,209,327 has been included in the draft budget. So you'll see that we have a transfer included already, and the fund is out of balance by almost $918,000. Enterprise fund summaries, transfer from electric fund to a general, this is electric fund, excuse me. A transfer, as I mentioned earlier, $350,000 from electric to general fund has been budgeted for. And this is currently the same as the current fiscal, as the 25-26 fiscal year. We continue to expand rapidly. Ron and his folks have a lot of work to undertake, and the fund is currently out of balance by $2.1 million. There is no fund balance or retained earnings currently appropriated in this budget. The water fund includes $700,000 for water purchases for resale, which I remind everybody is the water we purchase for and pay Greenville Utilities for. The fund itself is out of balance by $1,068,000, and there is no fund balance appropriation included in the draft budget. Sewer, same thing, out of balance by $404,000. There is currently no fund balance appropriated. Flipping the page, wanted to cover the allocation, the contribution that we pay Contentnia Metropolitan Sewerage District, or what you hear me call, otherwise known as CMSD. If you'll recall, it's a 3-member entity comprised of Grifton, Ayden, and Winterville. Each entity pays their proportionate share of the cost based on the amount of flow of wastewater that we send down to the Grifton sewage plant to be treated. The amount that we pay every year varies depending on rain and several other factors. And this year, our appropriation increased to $1,351,521. And I believe that's about $88,000 more than the appropriation was for this current fiscal year. The stormwater fund is out of balance by $239,486, and again, no fund balance appropriated. So when we're looking at the total budget across all funds, this unedited budget is out of balance by $10,011,890. That's a big number. So, having said that, our goal is to work with council to discuss ways that we can look at this budget differently to try to shrink that deficit. I will tell you that Jessica asked departments, I believe it was yesterday, my days are running together, to start preparing their cuts in their individualized departments and to present those accordingly. But $10 million is a big number to cover. So with that said, I'm happy to go into details with council on the budget, but I would like to start, if it's all right, with a discussion about non-town agency funding.
Before we start with that, could you just, for the audience, explain the enterprise funds and how they're the
So, local government finance is a little bit different than household finances in terms of we budget by funds. And you'll hear us use the term enterprise funds, and that includes electric, water, sewer, and stormwater. And these funds are those that can operate like a business and at a profit. And the revenues generated in these individual funds are comprised a majority by the rates that customers that receive those services pay. So that is a little bit different than the general fund, which the revenues for general fund is comprised of property tax revenues, what we call state shared revenues. That includes things like sales tax, utility, franchise tax, et cetera. And the general fund is not designed or created to operate at a profit. So we will do our best to try to break even, but as you can see, we have a pretty significant deficit. Some of the largest departments are located in the general fund, and some of the most expensive departments, aside from electric, are located in the general fund. So it's more challenging because those revenues aren't quite as flexible. And property tax, which I think a lot of people think is the bulk of the revenues that we collect for the general fund, really is not the bulk of the revenues. It is one revenue stream, and we don't really have any control over the rest of those revenue streams. So most of the control we have would be over property tax rates and then any of the other rates for the enterprise funds.
Okay, thank you. You're gonna open it up for anybody have any questions, want to discuss the non-town agencies?
Just as a reminder, we have not sent out applications. We've not done anything other than to put this placeholder amount in the budget as you all tried to discuss how you want to proceed forward.
Dr. Harrell, you want to elaborate on what you sent to us?
Please excuse my tardiness, but I did send, in case that I would not be able to be here, I did send an email that I think everyone has.
And we made a hard copy for everyone.
Okay, and so basically my email was stating that, as we continue to review the budget priorities, I wanted to share my position regarding funding requests for non-town agencies. So again, I'll paraphrase it. So it is concerning that we have the $10 million unbalanced budget. And so given the size of this imbalance, I believe that council should take a conservative and strategic approach before approving additional discretionary funding. So at this time, I am not in favor of allocating town funds to non-town agencies unless there is a direct, measurable, and immediate benefit to the residents. This is no reflection by any means on the value of the agencies, but rather a matter of fiscal responsibility. I feel like our first obligation must be to the core town services, infrastructure, public safety, staffing, utilities, parks and recreation, and resident-facing needs. I do believe that the Winterville Public Library should be considered differently from general outside agency funding because it is a direct community asset serving our residents. And I'll stop there, and that is what I'd like to say.
Thank you. Anyone else have, Councilwoman Smith?
Do I recall correctly, last year, I think we had conversation about moving the library to like a quasi-government.
It's its own line item, so it's not included
As a
with-
non-town agency?
Correct.
Thank you.
So it was, you just gave it to us on the form, but it's not included.
They go through the actual same process in terms of the application and the annual report that they provide. So I think historically it's been considered a non-town agency, but several years ago, I started using the term quasi-governmental because if it weren't for the relationship we have with Shepherd and the way we have it structured, it would cost us much more to try to run our own
Exactly.
library. So I do agree that is a quasi-governmental function.
Yes.
Gotcha. And I guess for clarity, would that be able to be removed from non-town agency? So just, council and others would know that it's not exactly a non-town agency, but as you said, could it be another line item or placed under another heading so it won't feel like?
It is currently another line item,
Okay.
so I think what staff and I can work on is a different application process for them.
Perfect.
And they can still provide the annual report
Absolutely.
of what they've achieved, but it doesn't necessarily have to be through the non-town agency process. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you.
Just for clarity, I have a question with regards to the library.
Yes, ma'am.
So there is funding coming from the town to the library.
Yes, ma'am.
As you stated, it wouldn't be as much as it is, but we are funding them. And they are not necessarily a town agency, just for clarity. They are a non-town agency.
They're sort of a quasi-town agency. Okay, so the Winterville Library is located in a facility that we own. The town of Winterville owns the building, so we have that piece covered. And then you'll see in the budget, the amount that we currently provide as requested by the library is $176,921, something to that effect. And so that is a sum total piece of their overall budget, but it does not fund the entire thing. And we get economies of scale, if you will, because it is part of the Shepherd system, if that makes sense, as opposed to if it were a completely different organization coming in and running it solely by themselves. They do have the benefit of the larger library in Greenville and the other satellite libraries that they operate. Does that answer?
It does, and so to sum it up, they are getting some funding from
Yes.
us. They are a non-town agency, but the building is owned by the town.
Yes.
So it's quasi, and like Dr. Harrell said, just to make it formally, or for our citizens to know that, it's a different line item, it is not coming out respectively along
Correct.
with the same category as the other.
Right, we've
Non-town
listed it just because I think historically, and Mayor Pro Tem Robertson and Councilman Moy, y'all been around a good while, you may help me, but I do believe that it has been treated historically as a non-town agency. So for the purposes of reporting, and you all could see what we've been given the library, we've continued to include it, but can certainly take it out and treat it as its own quasi-governmental agency.
That is correct.
Okay,
And our contribution pays the salaries
gotcha, thank
of the
you.
people working there.
For downtown agency, I attended the Central Municipality Government session. It was held back in February of this year. And that was one of the things that we discussed, non-town agency, how you fund it. And it was given to us out of the meeting. Everybody that was there present heard the same information that I heard, that we should not be funding nonprofit. That's coming from the North Carolina League of Municipalities. I was totally shocked because I do believe in helping. The ones that we have had in the past, I really support it, still support it. But to hear what they said and the information that was shared, it was a rude awakening to me. And I question it. I questioned it to a point after the meeting. I grabbed the one who was giving the information. They said, if you are doing it, you need to stop it.
I'd also like to say, Councilman Moy, I do echo what you're saying. I support and will continue to support, but I think, you know, coming from the league, that our top priority is, you know, making sure that we have the interests of our town, of the core of our town. And I do think that the in-kind amounts that we do provide, I do suggest that they stay the same, but the cash amounts that we provide, I'm just not in favor of that. I mean, maybe at another time, if, you know, once we can kind of get our budget at a healthy spot. But I do feel that the in-kind should stay where it is. Thank you.
And if I may, could I just remind council that the annual reports were provided at a previous meeting to just give you insight into the direct benefit to Winterville through those reports. So just a reminder of that's where you could gauge the effect to Winterville proper.
Councilwoman Smith, you have something?
I was just going to say, I echo, these are the concerns that I stated last year regarding non-town agency. I said last year, and Dr. Harrell has said this year, it's not anything about any individual agencies. In fact, I stated that it's kind of difficult to be able to have to discuss and choose to fund or an amount for different agencies. That is a difficult thing, and that my belief was that the money from Winterville taxes should remain in Winterville and serve Winterville. So I voted last year and would vote again to not fund out of the town as we did. I think we stopped funding last year, softball and things like that. I'm still in favor of that, but I believe that things that are of the town, like the in-kind stuff or the Arts Society and the Historical Society and the Winterville Citizen Club, I think those are important things. They serve our community. And I believe that the Watermelon Festival does as well.
So they're all non-town agency funding, so we'll just need some specifics on who you all, again, you're not going to consider, whether you are or not going to consider any new applications. Did you fund anybody? And then who are you choosing to agree to fund? And who are we not choosing to agree to fund, if that makes sense?
I think last year, I think we came up with last year that we wasn't gonna fund any new additional, but this year, are we considering not funding any at all? That's the question that I think is what Dr. Harrell is, don't let me put words in your mouth.
Oh, it's so
Okay,
black and white.
right, but, you know, I think that's what she's saying this year, that we need to look at not funding any non-town agencies. Last year, it came down to that we wasn't gonna accept any new applications, but we would continue to fund what we had in front of us. And so this year, what I'm hearing is that we don't want to fund non-town agencies.
So I would have to say that with an unbalanced budget of over $10 million, and with citizens having to pay a 2.5 cent increase for utility bills, as well as an upcoming $8.20 increase in utility bills via sewer, I do not think that we are at a place where we can fund any non-town agencies. I would not like to think we're picking one over the other. And then if one is receiving funds, what revenues, what is coming back to the town? How is that being shown? What historically have been given back to the town for funding them? In the place where we are at this time, I am against funding all non-town agencies as opposed to picking one over the other.
So would that include not funding the Winterville Chamber, the Historical Society, the Art Society, the Senior Club, and the Watermelon Festival, if we're doing no non-town agency?
So for me, as I'm speaking, again, if we cannot balance a budget that is over $10 million, and if we are charging our citizens additional rates, we are not at a place to fund them. Now, with that being said, there are in-kind funding that was mentioned, and we have to consider that. But choosing one over the other, and with looking at the amount of funding, I don't think that we are in a place or a position to fund them. I mean, not this year. That is just what I feel strongly about.
Thank you. Councilman Moy, I've heard your sentiment. Mayor Pro Tem Robinson.
As far as non-town agencies, I do think that we need to keep our in-kind. Those agencies are very important to our community. And I see all of them as being contributing to our community, but yet and still, I do agree with the sentiment of those on the council that we have to look at our citizens and look at the fact that we want to continue to provide them with the same level of services that we've been giving them. At least maintain what we got. We want to keep our environment safe, so we've got our water and sewer rates and things that do that. So we want to keep things good for our community. We want our community to continue to grow. So we know that there are some services that we're going to have to provide. So we need to look at ways that we can maintain those services and let it be as small or as little or no impact on the citizens of our community. That's a big job to do, especially with what we have here and this $10 million deficit.
Okay, so Terry, just to recap, what is our in-kind? Who's receiving the in-kind?
Currently, we maintain the grounds at the Winterville Historic and Art Society. That would be the depot as well as the Ainge House. We've estimated that, and it could be more now with gas prices and whatnot, but around $14,000 a year. The in-kind for Winterville Chamber, that's the office and the things that go along with that, somewhere around $1,200. In-kind for the festival, somewhere around close to $68,000, $67 and some change. And then, of course, I've got the library listed here, but we've already covered that.
Right, we already covered it. So again, that is the arts, 14,000. The chamber around about 1,200. And the festival in kind is around about 67,000. Give or take.
68,
right,
yeah.
Right, give or take. Okay.
And the senior,
Yes, and that's not listed here, but it needs to be. We do allow the Winterville Senior Citizens folks to use the community room at no cost, and thank you, Ms. Robertson. Mayor Pro Tem, we need to include that.
Senior.
Winterville Senior Citizen in kind. Okay. And I'll get that included in the next iteration of the budget message.
Now, I'm just, even with the seniors, if we did no non-town agencies, the seniors still would have a place because we operate a senior,
Drop-in program, yes.
Drop-in program.
Parks and Rec.
Through Parks and Rec. So it's not like we're just taken away from the seniors. They still will have an option to go through our Parks and Rec, correct, Diane? And that meets
every other.
Second and fourth Thursday of each month, right? Second and fourth Thursday of each month. Okay.
And I'm going to assume if you elect not to fund non-town agencies, but the in-kind stay in place, then the Winterville Senior Citizens Group, assuming they continue to meet, would continue to meet at the community room. So that would be
Right,
the one that
right.
maintains
But they would not receive an alignment.
the cash,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So I'd like to make a motion that we, I'd like to make a motion to not fund the non-town agencies in the cash amount, however, to continue with the in-kind amount, and also, I don't know if this needs to be added, but that the Shepherd Memorial Library amount or that line item will be taken off of the non-town agency report and placed by itself as a quasi-town agency.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion on the floor, motion made by Councilwoman Dr. Randy Harrell, second by Councilwoman Hawkins, to not fund non-town agencies, correct? With only the in-kind and moving the Shepherd Memorial Library to a quasi status. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, any discussion?
Yeah.
Councilman Moore? Oh, okay, Mr. Robinson,
Um,
Councilwoman Robinson.
In making that motion, would that motion restrict us from being a quote sponsor of the Watermelon Festival? I know in some communities, you have different levels of sponsorship. Would this exclude the town of Winterville from being like a major sponsor or whatever for it?
I'll defer that to Terry, but I don't think that we can't be a sponsor, we're just not giving like the funding to them, is that right? Because it's a difference between giving them that funding and being a sponsor, correct?
Sure, it's giving funding regardless,
Right.
right? But I do not see it as the same because they would not be going through the non-town agency
Right.
process.
I know some of the communities, they, the town is a sponsor. They, donate anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000.
That's still donating or giving cash. I think the 67,000 in kind should
That would be our
suffice to be a
donation.
sponsor, yes. If that is accepted, if you have that conversation with the Watermelon Festival Committee, that they would accept that as being a sponsor, that 67,000 in kind.
Okay.
And by doing that, how much would we, how can I say, save the town, or?
You give them a 50,000 cash.
I mean,
out.
not only with us not doing the Watermelon Festival, and we're not doing the chamber, right? Except in kind, am I correct?
Yes,
And then we have, of course, there's a donation to the senior citizens, and I don't have that sheet in front of me.
I'm pretty sure that the cash allocation amount for this current fiscal year was $82,000 total.
right.
Okay, 82.
I'm doing that off memory, but I'm pretty sure that's right.
It's 80, I'm looking at it here, it's 82,000.
Okay.
And then the in-kind is around 86,000.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I said, you're correct. The cash or the funding value was 82, and it looks like the in-kind is 86,145 plus dollars.
And Don just reminded me that Watermelon Festival was 40 this year, that we're currently in, 40.
It's the cash donation.
Correct.
So, Mr. Moore, do you ever have anything, or if not, I'm gonna call for the question. You have, okay. I call for the question. All in favor of the motion, show of hands, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3. All opposed? 2. Motion carried, to not fund non-town agencies.
And can I make a statement?
Yes, sir.
And the reason why I said, if you're not going to fund, give them cash, the in-kind should be the same. That's just my opinion. If you're gonna do one, because if you really look at your numbers, the only thing we saving with, Watermelon Festival, 40,000. But yet, it's still costing us 6,000 to 7,000. So where you're saving that? 40,000? Because of cash money.
Correct.
But it's just like 6 in one hand and half a dozen in the other, it's gonna equal out to the same. It's just the way I see it, if you understand what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's the reason
Councilwoman
why I
Smith?
voted the way
I'm
I
sorry.
did.
I'm sorry, Councilman Moore, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Smith.
And I agree with that statement as well, but I also think that the chamber does have a great value, as does the festival, to our community.
Okay, all right, thank you. Is there anything else? Manager?
Okay, so we got the non-town agency, I think, out of the way. So we just theoretically found $82,000, but we've got 10 million to cover, let's just say, or just shy under. Let me go over some things that I think will make some of the difference, but it's certainly not going to cover everything. And hop in, welcome. So obviously, there is some equipment that is requested, and I will have to give the departments credit. These were some of the leanest budget requests I've seen in a long time. They took the direction literally, so, and I appreciate that. But there is some equipment that is included in the requests. What we normally do, if you'll recall, is when we decide to move forward with those equipment requests that we intend to finance, is that we show, you may remember me talking about this previously, the full in and out figures in the first budget year. So you will find under a line item in the revenue section of each fund called debt proceeds. And so that's where we know how much something's gonna cost, and we know how much we're gonna borrow to buy that piece of equipment. So we will show an in of that total amount for the equipment, and then the total expenditure out. So it'd be zero net, basically. And then what happens is, once we borrow the money and we close on the loans, then the debt service payments with interest come on board. So that could make a difference in some of this deficit. We don't show any debt proceeds currently, because we wanted you to see the full unedited version. One of the biggest requests is the fire department. They need a new squad, and that's $1.3 million estimated to be. So we move forward with that request, then it would be $1.3 million in general fund under debt proceeds, and then $1.3 million out. And I'm using that term just rounded off. Obviously, we haven't gone into the specifics of pricing it. I believe a dump truck, some pickup trucks have been requested, and not a ton of equipment, but some, and most of it can be financed. So again, you'd have your debt proceed numbers, and then you'd have your expenditure numbers. That is not going to cover $10 million, but it will get part of that. Also, there were 2.5 positions, I believe, requested in Parks and Rec. Just 2, no part-time? 2 positions in Parks and Rec requested, and 2.5 positions requested in fire. Remind me, jump in if that's not right, Jessica. And I think that's it. We've tried to look at including those, not that other departments don't need positions, but we felt like we've included those requests are there, and we've included them for your consideration. But obviously, that's got a pretty big price tag when you've got 4.5 positions attached to it. I will also say that, again, keeping the health insurance the same, and the costs that we're absorbing That was an additional, I think, across all funds, 300,000 thereabouts. So you've got that, again, that I'm not proposing to make any changes, and I have met Jessica, we've all met with all the departments, and I think Kim sat in all those meetings with me. And I think across the board, that was the thing that everybody supported, was keeping the health insurance the same this year and trying to absorb the cost, with everyone walking away knowing that changes could come in the future, depending on, you know, options and what comes out. So again, if we took all of those things I just said, we're still gonna have a deficit. That does not, we have not allocated any fund balance or retained earnings in any of the funds yet, but it is most certain that we're going to be allocating, we'll just use the term fund balance across the board. Again, that is not something that we should be doing long-term in order to balance our budgets. And we've got it in general fund, but we can't take a large-scale swath and just reduce our fund balance by $5 million, let's say. So how do we increase our revenues? Well, in general fund, other than some revenue, small revenue streams, and I believe we passed out in response to Councilwoman Hawkins's request, you should have a one-page handout at your seat. The revenue, the rentals, we've got the community room rental revenue generated between in-town and out-of-town rates was $9,375. Everybody got their page? It looks like this. Okay, and then pavilion rentals, that is your picnic shelters at the recreation facilities. You've got a total of $3,472.55. And Councilwoman Hawkins, you asked about Depot as well. That's not ours. That belongs to the Winterville Historical and Art Society. So we did help them previously schedule their reservations, but we don't do that anymore, so we don't receive any of the revenue from their rentals. But Jessica, thank you for pulling those numbers together, and you can see there is some revenue, but it's a small amount comparatively speaking. So again, revenue sources, we've got property tax rates. We need to increase our property taxes. It's just, it goes without saying. I think this year in our property tax revenue increase from our, I just lost my train of thought, from the valuation. Mm-hmm. It increased a total of about 85,000. Roundabout. That's it. From this current year to what's estimated next year, we're only estimating to see around 85,000 extra dollars.
And also, too, can you explain to the citizens that, because we're having a lot of rooftops, but they got to understand that the steps fall in when someone move in.
Well, no, there's a lag.
There's a lag, right?
In time.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of things under construction, and we have a lot of theoretical rooftops on the table that have not begun yet, but when revenue comes along, that happens in stages, and just because we've approved it doesn't then generate into additional tax revenue yet. So when we look at the amount of increased valuation and take it by our current tax rate, it is only estimated to be $85,000 in additional revenue, which is really not much in the grand scheme of things when you're looking at a $500,000 deficit in the general fund. So that's the basic and largest revenue source on the general fund side that I'm aware of that we have control over and that we can adjust is property tax rates. When we get into the enterprise funds, obviously those are funded predominantly by the rates that we charge for each service, electric, water, sewer, and stormwater. We have been being told by the funding agencies and the LGC for some time that our rates are low. That is why we don't get approved for some of the funding that we'd apply for, is because our rates are too low. And you may say, how can that be? Well, they deal with entities all across the state, and you don't want to be in a position where your rates are too low, because then you can't get the low-interest loans that the money is available for communities. We're not eligible to receive a lot of grant funding, but we certainly can't receive any grant funding if our rates are too low. The mayor, he will attest to the fact we're even out of consideration because of our population size with respect to USDA funding. So that's a whole pot of funding that's no longer available to us anymore that could have been a way that we're able to fund some of our needs.
And also to add to that, also, even with, in USDA, they'll look at and to determine whether we will make a loan to you by looking at your rates. And the first thing they're gonna say is, you're gonna have to raise your rates, because you're not collecting enough in order to, for even to take it on. You still won't be able to cover the debt.
Right, in their mind, it's not, there's not a big enough need if your rates are too low, that, again, you can't pay the debt service.
Can't pay the debt service.
So, but what we do have control over is the rates we charge for these utilities. So, having said that, when I say that we're bringing forward, try not to do it this year, we wanted you to see the real picture, but we have got to absolutely unequivocally raise our rates, raise our tax rate, and it needed to have started this year, but it absolutely needs to start next year. And hopefully, we can all work collectively to come up with a schedule for incremental increases. And that's hard to do, particularly when you hear gas is $5, gas is right at $5, $4, and everything else is expensive. But unfortunately, we've got to pay the bills, and the only way to do that is to increase our revenue streams. Jessica, please jump in and say something if I neglected to mention it. So, yeah, I thought so.
Council levy, we're giving 5 plus a 2% merit.
That's what's suggested. Obviously, we will need to take a look at that. I believe we looked at the consumer price index for the last 12 months. It was around 3.
3.5.
So 3.5.
Is it 3.5? I thought I looked at it.
I think Jessica and Anthony and I were discussing it. So for the past 12 months, I think it was right around 3.
Right.
So you give the cost of living raises to try to make sure that people's salaries stay competitive. That is something, Mayor Pro Tem, that we may need to look at adjusting to something more closely aligned with the consumer price index. But to answer your question, yes, ma'am, right now it's proposed at a 5% COLA and an average of 2% merit.
In our area, pretty much, it's like 3.25, even 3.75.
You talking about COLAs given or?
In Greenville, it's like 3.5. I think they agreed on something.
So, yes, and of course, Greenville and Greenville Utilities try to align with what they budget on. So I haven't seen their actual numbers that they've decided on, but I can certainly check on that. And
I'm sorry, as of April, it says it increased by 0.6% and rose up to 3.8% overall the last 12
consumer
months.
price index,
Yeah.
okay, 3.8, okay, thank you.
I said 3.5. I thought I had read it, but.
So that's something we can look at and then provide back on Tuesday night, is what everyone else in the area is doing. Again, I know that we have to make some hard decisions and look at all of these things.
One of the biggest increase that we have had, and this is one of the biggest one we ever have had, is the health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
I can't recall we ever had an increase this tremendous, this large since I've been on the board. You're talking about 18.9%.
It started out at 24,
24.
just for comparative
Yes.
purposes.
Yes. It would've been nice if we could've got it down to about 9.
It would be
8.
wonderful.
Yes. Do we know exactly how much the difference is compared to what it was from last year to this increase here? Totally, the amount, what it would cost the town,
Across all funds, an additional about $300,000.
about 300,000 to cover it totally, everyone, that's included?
Yes, we pay 100% of the employee-only cost,
Of the employee,
and we pay a proportionate share of dependent coverage.
right?
And what we've done, and the whole time I've been here, is that we have absorbed anything over as rates have increased, the town took on and did not pass along to the employees the increases for the dependent coverage. Now, we're already starting to talk about potentially next year needing to look at something different. Just what we've really been able to do as a recruitment and retention tool, and I'm looking at Angie to make sure she can verify, are our benefits and how good they've been. And I'd put our insurance plan up against anybody's in the area. I will say, though, that Blue Cross Blue Shield's trying to make it difficult for us to keep our plan because our plan is so good. And as the Affordable Care Act, the premiums for that program have increased, bless you. And we continue to try to provide it. I think this is going to be a multi-year fight to keep our insurance. Having said that, there are entities right here in Pitt County that saw over 50% increase in their health insurance premiums. So whereas 18.94 is astronomical for us, there are some entities dealing with, I heard 57% in one jurisdiction. So there are tough times out there for everybody trying to figure out what to do.
Well, also too, you gotta understand, Blue Cross Blue Shield just was in a settlement of $2.6 billion. So who gonna help pay that? It's on our backs as far as their customers. And, as we sit here and we talk about rates, we're gonna definitely have to look at it and look at how we can, like she said, phase it in, so that the citizens can be prepared. It's gonna be a tough decision, but it's a decision that we're gonna have to look at, and be able to phase this in, so.
Well, and I think that you may ask, did Angie and I, have we talked to other insurance carriers? And the answer is yes. And there are some, Angie and I have both been around a while, so we have a very structured way at looking at how health insurance is procured and then turned around and given to employees. There are some, I will say, innovative things that are happening in some of the insurance fields that are interesting to us, but we both are pretty conservative and want to make sure we take a good hard look before we recommend any changes. And I'm talking about even if we're recommending looking at other carriers like a Cigna or an Aetna, because what really happens is they'll give you a fantastic cost the first year to come in and get you to change over, and then they sock it to you in subsequent years. So we would want to look at history and that kind of thing, make sure that if we did go with another company, that people's ability to get seen and find providers, and we're in a good area with the hospital being so close, but that can be a challenge. So there's a lot to it, and a lot of things have changed over the years, so I just felt like trying to do anything of a large-scale change like that for this coming year was just too soon. And employees need to be given plenty of notice so they can start preparing.
I think that was a good point that you just stated. That yes, we're gonna have to start looking, out of the box. Things continue to the route it's going. And, but we're gonna do all we can. I'm just saying. I told someone today, Moore has one vote. My vote is yes, I want to do all I can to make sure our staff is well taken care of. And I hope and pray that we can be able to find ways and means that to cut this deficit to a point that we still can continue having our staff that opportunity with those benefits that we have for you. So that's one vote.
Well, Councilman Moy, I appreciate you saying that because staff knows, and we talk about it a lot, we are a small staff in total, comparatively speaking, with towns our size, towns smaller than us. And this crowd gets a ton done, and I don't have to tell you all know it. So how do you what's a big way to thank them? And that's to take care of them, as you say, through benefits packages and things of that nature. And we want to try to do that in the best way we can and continue to do it. And we've been able to do it. So it'll be a lot of work ahead, but certainly we're all committed to doing best by the employees because they deserve it.
I would add to that, that doing the best that we can by our employees is also doing the best that we can for all of our residents.
Absolutely.
Because having a good staff, to have a staff
Absolutely.
like ours that has long-range vision, that gets things done, is very important to our town as a whole.
Well, and that's a great
That's an
point too.
investment in our town.
We are a full-service town. I mean, we do it all. And so, having said that, to do it with as few people as we have is amazing, and they get it done every day. And I can't say thank you enough because they're the ones that make it happen, and the citizens should feel good about that, and I think most of them do.
And the citizens realize that, and we realize that when we look at cost of living increases, not only we're talking about our staff, we're talking about people in our community.
Right.
They are also facing a rise in the price of gas.
Absolutely.
food, all those kinds of things. So when we look at appropriating taxes, putting another burden on them, we have to consider that too. And also how we spend the money. We look at, that's why I voted what I did, because of the fact that I can't see us asking more from our citizens, and they have less. Their
Well,
monies are not going as far as they used to. So therefore, anything that we can cut to cut the burden on them, I feel like it's worth it.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the ways that we can get through this deficit, and I haven't made any suggestions, but is to cut service level. And that is an option.
But what?
Service level. I still say, no matter the changes we made in solid waste, we pick up everything. And, most of your jurisdictions around here don't even come close to that. And I'm not talking about GFL, I'm talking about everything we pick up. It's a wonderful service, and it's for a very small price. So if we're not wanting to look at everything going up, the alternative is to look at cutting service. I'm not suggesting that, but that is an option and a way to save money. So I just wanted to make sure that's put out there. Never a popular choice, but that it's at least mentioned.
So I would like to share, Town Manager Parker, since you just mentioned prospectively or having a thought of cutting service levels. When you say this and the public is listening, that then brings them to uncertainty. Service levels in what area, what department, when and how does that look? So just bringing that as part of the conversation, and as the budget is going through a variety of phases to be composed, prospectively, you can bring specificity in that, in looking at that. Just wanted to mention that because I just wrote it down, and that was like Councilman Moy said, service levels, how does that look? So I wanted to mention that. I also wanted to mention the next time we meet, in terms of the COLA rate 5.0, if you can bring something back in terms of looking at a variation of that at a lower rate. While I know our employees are doing an amazing job, just having that rate and having it compare to the 3.5, looking at that and how that can work, in consideration that a lot of the health insurance is being covered by the town. So that is also helping the employees by them having that great benefit of the health insurance. Also, when we talk about the 2% merit for employees, how do we, and I think Councilman Moore brought that up at a previous budget meeting, how do we verify justification for merits? You know, how does that work? How many employees will receive that? And because that then also comes out of the budget. And lastly, as we're talking about the budget, it was mentioned the 1.2 million prospectively for the fire department. I will continue to advocate for funding for the fire department, being we have 2 trucks, we need to have full staffing available to meet the needs of our town. There was also discussion of the community fire department and them, you know, having more of a relationship to which they can help, but the town's fire department is the town's fire department, and if they have 1 truck at 1 emergency and something else arises, they need to be able to be proactive and not, you know, scrambling. So I will continue to advocate for that. Lastly, when the town or the citizens, myself, we're looking at a variety of out of balance areas throughout the budget. How do we explain to the townspeople how these different areas became out of budget at these specific levels? When did it begin? How does that happen? Who's looking at it? How is it being cross-checked so that it doesn't get to this level? That is my comments. And hopefully, we can have discussion on this and bring some of that information back on the next meeting.
Certainly, and I may follow up with you to make sure I got all those, if that's all right. I would like to answer the last one you brought up, though, if we could. So our budget process starts with Jessica sending out budget forms and an overall email with directives to the staff, letting them know sort of what our goals are, conservative budgeting, et cetera. And that staff is to have their budget request in by the end of March. All right, end of March. There are a lot of numbers floating through my brain, so I wanted to make sure I'm saying that correctly. At that point, they have entered their requests into the computer as well as sent it hard copy. And that's what you have tonight, is their request. So the deficit comes from the request versus the amount of revenue we have currently to cover those requests in each fund.
Thank you so much. And that, I did hear that before. And when we talk about the request, how can then the department heads come back and slim those requests down? Are those pertinent requests? Are those urgent requests? Or are these just desires as we move forward? Because if everybody is cutting, perhaps some of these requests, which are, you know, some are into the millions, how can that be slimmed down?
So it's a great question. I think historically I would say that requests included all of the above, urgent needs, and then some wants. I will say this year across the board, I saw urgent needs and needs. I didn't see a whole lot of want because I think staff really understands what we're facing in terms of limited revenue. So I do think that what you have before you, or the requests are all needed, and they're slimmed down, if you will, from maybe previous budget requests.
Thank you, and you are giving good feedback. With these requests, where do we as a council see some of the urgent needs? Where is this listed? Because we are expected to vote on it. Where's the transparency so that we can see in good faith what we are voting on?
Sure, and the budget that was provided via digitally on the 18th, at the end of every department, you will see notes. And they include, I will say, major points for certain line items. Notes are provided if a certain line item has changed dramatically versus what they received in that line item previously. Capital outlay, and that last four numbers in every department is 7150. Right. And you might want to write that down, because that's where you'll see a lot of the large-scale equipment requests in the line item with the last four numbers, 7510, and that's the same last four in every department. And those notes are contained therein. I will say that, again, in the departments, the two departments that requested additional employees, Parks and Recreation and Fire, the salary and benefit line items include those positions currently.
Thank you, and I will look and I will peruse, and that's why I asked for what?
Yes, ma'am. We'll get that to you tomorrow.
Thank you, and I know we received this a few days ago, just in an effort, maybe next year, that we can receive it maybe a week or two ahead, so that we can really look through it and delve into it. I think a lot of these questions will be answered. Also, on each department's, which I'm gonna, this is the end of the school year, we've been in meetings, promotion, retention, so it's a lot going on. But with looking at each department and what they identify as what is needed most, or the highest level of line items, is there any indication, where is it indicated that is urgent, that is urgently needed? Even if it's a high number of a line item, how do we know that that is urgently needed? I mean, that's just my question. And I can go back and look and ask specifically when I see something of a high amount, is that urgent?
So again, I will say that you're in the departmental columns, you're going to see department head requested and then department head modified. That's where departments are going to go in and they're going to make their cuts. And same with manager review and then manager modified. So what we'll do in the next iteration of the budget message, but also the budget, it'll come to you after the departments have made their cuts. I will tell you that anything that's included currently from a sizable amount, equipment request or otherwise, are considered pretty important. Maybe not all urgent, but certainly needed. But I will, what departments have already been instructed to do by Ms. Manning, thank you, is to start preparing their cuts in their departments. They knew with the amount that we were out of balance, cuts need to be made. They've not been given a percentage. They know what, after receiving the document, where the deficits lie in each fund. So they'll go in and they'll give their recommendation as to the cuts. And then certainly additional cuts may come after my review. And when I say my review, my formalized review, where it comes back to council, because at this point, it's my budget. But I think the only way you'll truly know what's been requested is if the first time you see it, it's unedited, so you see all of the requests.
What about the, in the discussion, it just, I started thinking about the Pitt County plan for fire and rescue. Right. How will that affect, do you think that will affect our department in a positive way? Because I know that we were saying that some of the biggest requests were in, the fire department.
Well, their stuff's expensive, right? Everything's expensive, but when you buy a fire truck, it's just really expensive. So I think that question's a good question, but they're trying to finish up our master plan. And our master plan takes into account some of the county's master plan, in addition to things that we need specifically. You all had your interviews with the folks that are working on the master plan. They may have mentioned some interesting things. They did to me, and that's certainly what that looks like. I'm not sure. How it affects us, I'm not sure, but I do know that the county would like to see a voluntary reduction in the number of fire departments. You all know that the community rural fire department used to be part of our department. And that was one of the things when I first started, the two departments separated. I don't think we could have ever guessed that we'd end up with two different departments in our corporate limits, but that's where we are. So I know that there's some, at least chatter and talk about, does it make sense for a merging of the two departments? I don't know what the report looks like yet, but you could see any of those things. And I think what comes out of our master plan will give you good insight as to how our department could be affected. And keep in mind that also includes EMS, and I will remind you all, EMS as a department does not belong to the town of Winterville currently. We fund the salary and benefits for 2 paramedics, and we lend them to the EMS department, and EMS reimburses us the salary and benefits. But the EMS department needs to go somewhere, and it's either come under the umbrella of the town of Winterville or go to Pitt County. And we've talked about this. Master plan's supposed to speak to this in some respect. So I'll be interested in what that report comes out and says related to EMS, because if we were to take EMS, much like when the fire department split, there could be a change in response area, et cetera. So there's a lot of work to be had where that's concerned, and that's a whole kind of lingering thing out there currently. And I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Well, I was thinking about the request that we had in this budget.
I don't think the request in this budget would change. No matter what. The county plan, I believe, is 750 pages, and I'd be less than honest if I said I had read through that entire document yet. It's an iterative process. You try to read as much of it as you can. I am interested in seeing what our finished plan looks like.
I do have a question about the animal control, which is listed. Can you please share if that is active? How does that work? Because I know that was in a process.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you please share animal control? How does that work? How did it work in the current budget, and how will it look in the upcoming budget, please?
So you may recall in the current budget, there were some nominal figures included in animal control, even though we're not operating animal control currently. We started talking with the county many, many months ago, if you recall, and had it on good authority that we would go under contract with them. And what would need to happen is that the town would need to adopt the county ordinance, animal control ordinance, and then we would go under contract. And the annual amount for contract, at least the annual amount that Aiden and Farmville are paying currently is $25,000 annually. So that's the figure we were told it would be. Well, then you may recall the Animal Services Director was let go. They went a time period without a director or without a permanent director, and they have now hired a new director. I've stayed in constant contact with Janice Gallagher, and I know the mayor has talked with one of the deputy managers about the status. I met recently with Miss Gallagher, and she, of course, then they had the animal hoarding situation from, was that Grimesland?
Grimesland. Yeah.
So, you know, you might remember this, the shelter closed and all of that. So we're hoping to go under contract July 1st. I'm hoping to bring that to you in June for consideration. But the plan is still to go under contract with the county.
Because they had to review the contract with the
Yes,
new,
they've written
with the
the,
new director that
Right.
came in. She wanted to look at it to make sure everything was.
county's written the contract. I understand 25,000 is still the amount. So does that make sense? Does that answer?
It does. If in fact it's going into effect in July, my question is, for this current year, if the animal control was included, those monies, what happened with those?
Just rolls back into general fund at the end of the
So-
budget year,
Okay, because it was.
because we weren't doing animal control.
Thank you. And then just also, because we're speaking of a budget and monies, the town shared that there was $12.4 million in unassigned funds.
Correct.
I'm just keeping that at the surface when we're talking about appropriating monies and things of that nature. There is monies in an unassigned fund. I just, the next time we meet, would like to know, is certain amounts locked into something or prospectively, or is that dead set on just sitting there? Because again, we have a $10 million, deficit. That was just.
Thank you. Most assuredly, just as an updated amount, that 12.4 is, you remember you've approved some budget amendments since that number was given. So our general fund unassigned is closer to 8.1 million currently.
And those monies went to, some portion of that went to
The various budget amendments that you all have seen in recent months. And we can get you a list of what was included in those budget amendments, if that would help.
Can you give me that amount again, please, or us that
Yes.
amount?
You can see better than I.
8,126,457.
$8,126,457. Thank you.
So, and again, once the audit occurs, sometimes depending on the status of things, monies may roll back into fund balance, but we won't know that till the audit is complete. And we have to get to the end of the budget year first. But yes, ma'am, so this draft includes no contributions from general fund or retained earnings. And most assuredly, most of the funds will include some allocation from fund balance in order to balance it, because I just do not see 10 million in actual cuts coming forward.
The state requires us to keep how much?
Unassigned fund balance, I still think it's 8%. You all have an internal policy of 25%. Again, I will caution everyone, that's of 1 year's operating expenditure. So for smaller jurisdictions, the number needs to be much higher, because it takes, have to have a higher percentage in order to cover should a disaster arise, or in this case, we have to balance budgets and things of that nature. And I think you're right. I'm doing this off memory to scare you. But definitely, we're looking at and including all of those things as we strive to balance the budget.
Okay, I got a question, might be to you or to Ms. Diane. The question is the two positions that we request. The recreation department has increased to a point whereas that we can't operate without 2 more employees. And what have we done, to cause that increase of what we have in place?
So you have a total of 5. staff, full-time staff, running all programs and maintaining all grounds, and that's just not very many people.
But you said that, did you say that some of your staff is been sourced out to help someone else, or is it vice versa? Did you say that some of your staff has been sourced out to help someone else, or you talking about, did you say that they coming in to help you out?
I have a question, Ms. White. You said you have 2 maintenance workers, 2 recreation program supervisors. What was the other position? You have 5?
Supervisor. Park maintenance supervisor and park maintenance worker.
And the 2.5, you said 2.5 positions you're seeking, or
2.
2?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly.
This is
Okay.
2, yes, ma'am.
Because I was thinking, what would be the half?
Usually a part-time person, and that's in fire.
Okay, thank you. So the 2, what would those positions be?
One would be a maintenance position, and then one would also be a recreation position.
Diane, when you say a recreation position, what does that mean?
So we're looking for like a recreation inclusive position, so that way we can have some more programming and sports activities as well, and special events.
Thank you. When you say recreation inclusive, can you explain it? What is that? They're all around? Different?
All around, it could be different areas to where we can work with the autistic program that's down the street, or any other activities, maybe even with the EC department with the school system as well. Yes ma'am, special populations.
Thank you. And lastly, for Parks and Recreation, I know we're not funding any non-town agencies. I brought before the council the flag football sports event for girls flag football here in Winterville, and Parks and Recreation has been helpful with them and allowing them to utilize the Hillcrest Park. Is that to the limit of where they're being helped or supported, or are they being given materials, or how does that work?
So with us collaborating in partnership, basically we help with the advertising, set up the registration, the field use, any equipment they may need that we have that they can borrow.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. Just keep in mind, the next budget work session will be Tuesday, May the 26th at 6 p.m. here. Terry, is it?
For those of you that requested hard copies, we'll get those tomorrow. And if you have any questions as you continue to look through, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay, all right. With that being the case, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion made by Councilwoman Robinson. I couldn't, who second? Okay, second by Councilwoman Dr. Brandon Harrell. Any discussion on that? If none, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carry.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Whew, I gotta go to this restroom.
Tell me to go first. Get this done. Thank you.